Hey, welcome to another edition of Sports Beat KC. I'm Blair Kerkhoff, and I'm here with Rustin, Dodd, and we are here to talk about the Kansas basketball team. The Jayhawks, the newly minted number 2 team in the nation. The AP poll came out today, and Kansas is up to number 2 in that poll. I always thought that the wire or the media poll was a little bit ahead of the coaches poll in terms of just sort of capturing the moment. And I say that because in the coaches poll, Kansas is 7th. That's quite a disparity for a top 10, for a team ranked in the top 10. But it makes sense with what UCLA beat Kentucky and Maryland lost to North Carolina. Okay, so Kansas is coming off a 6-point victory over Harvard. It was an interesting game because the Jayhawks had a 16-point lead in the first half, and next thing you know, it's tied. It's tied in the second half. Just take us through, Rustin. How'd they get ahead so big, and then what happened?
It was, I guess, it was sort of an odd game for Kansas, just because they had to play without Wayne Selden for most of the game. He picked up 2 fouls in the first half, and then Bill Self brought him back in. And then later said he kind of wished he didn't, but he picked up the 3rd foul in the end of the first half, and then picked up a 4th foul early in the second half. So they were sort of playing without him, and then Perry Ellis did not play very well. They missed a lot of layups, and he sort of wasn't himself and hasn't been himself for the last couple of weeks. I mean, not couple of weeks, but at least the last couple of games since they get back from Maui. And so I think they just didn't really have much inside presence. They're kind of similar to the Michigan State game. They didn't really have a lot of inside scoring, not a lot going on there. Frank Mason and Devontae Graham both played well, but the rest of the offense, there wasn't much there. And they kind of got beat up on the boards. I mean, if there was anything to be really concerned about, it was that Harvard out-rebounded them 39-31 and was up, I think, 21-12 in the rebounding margin at halftime. So that kind of kept Harvard in the game, even though they were not playing, great. But it was, I don't know, it was sort of an interesting game because you would think after a game like this that Bill Self is going to come out and really kind of rip his team and kind of say, hey, we need to be better, all this sort of stuff. He sort of took a different tact. He said, they missed some layups, and I think they were 13 of 25 from the free throw line. And, if those points go in, then it looks a little bit different. And he thought they actually played pretty well. I mean, they got the ball inside, which is sort of the everlasting debate with KU basketball, is that this team doesn't really convert shots at the rim very well, but Bill Self loves easy shots at the rim. So it's sort of this conflict.
They're not going to stop trying.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to stop pounding the ball inside. So, but yeah, it was not their best performance, and even against Loyola, they didn't play very well in the first half. So I think they have definitely some upside or some room to improve over the next week or two.
Okay, a lot to get to there. Let's start with Selden, because we cannot have a podcast or a video or a story without talking about Wayne Selden. He really has become the touchstone for this team. And I know earlier you and I talked. He had a poor game. Was it the Michigan State game?
Yeah, he didn't play very well.
He played poorly, and we just thought, oh no, he had the great summer, but he didn't follow it up, and it's really going to cost him. Then he goes to Maui. Kansas goes to Maui. Was he the MVP? Was he
was
the MVP?
co-MVP with Frank Mason.
Okay, so he had a terrific tournament in Maui, and now, as you mentioned, he gets in foul trouble. He leaves the floor, and the Kansas, what happened? The personality change, something. I mean, he has proved in the last few weeks just how vital he seems to be to this team.
Yeah, and I honestly think, I mean, he was shooting 57% from 3 entering the game, and I think he was 2 of 3, so he might be shooting above that now. But I mean, that's not going to continue. But at the moment, if anybody's shooting 58% from 3-point range, it's a pretty productive player, and I think he's been better. I think more than anything, just the offense that he's provided from his shooting and some other things. He still hasn't been great at getting to the basket, but he has been a little bit more aggressive and hasn't been turning the ball over like he has in the past. And if he's going to continue to shoot even something like 45% or 40% or something like that,
which would be terrific.
Yeah, he'll be a productive player for them. I do think that if they've kind of have this identity where Frank Mason and Devontae Graham are sort of the catalysts. And Wayne Selden has sort of, I think, benefited from that, just being the sort of guy that gets the open shots when they're making plays. And they didn't have Brandon Green the other day, obviously, because he's still suspended. Svi Mikhailuk didn't shoot very well. So I think, if they're going to have so much offense predicated on penetration and guys driving and guys getting high ball screens, that kind of stuff, like Selden's kind of the perfect guy to be in there to get those open shots, and he obviously wasn't in the game. So numbers-wise, he's putting up incredible offense, but I think he's getting so much of it just because Graham and Mason have been so good.
Yeah, I think it was Kevin Stallings, the Vanderbilt coach, who said Selden has the easiest job in the world. He just stands out on the wing and waits for Graham and Mason to penetrate and kick it, and he's there and he's good enough to knock down the open jumper. So, again, the rebounding totals, I think, were, as you said, I think that was one of the most troubling things, aspects of the Harvard game, and to be out rebounded by 8. With a team that supposedly improved its inside presence with the with the eligibility of Sheck Diallo, and you've got Carlton Bragg and Ellis. You've got we've talked about this as well. The incredible number of front court players they have now, and having to parcel out the minutes for these guys. I just don't think Kansas. I don't think any team should out rebound Kansas by 8 on their home floor. Much less an Ivy League team that was 2-5 coming into the game.
Yeah, it's a definite concern. I think it's more just it's interesting, kind of the puzzle of the front court, what it's going to look like over the next week or two. Diallo played 7 minutes against Harvard. They went with Landon Lucas because Bill Self said he liked his defense and the rebounding, and he did grab 8 rebounds in 24 minutes or something like that, and was their leading rebounder. But it's sort of this puzzle of who's going to play, and Bill Self has always played about 4 post players. He's never really deviated from that. He's never really played more. So you think it's going to kind of remain the same. They'll have to have some sort of rotation, and but it's interesting because you've got these young guys that they need to get minutes to develop, but they also have these veterans that Bill Self trusts, and he's going to do what he always does, which is bring guys along slowly. So it's an interesting kind of dilemma. I was even thinking about this, and it's almost like something that hard to wrap your head around, but it's like they need Diallo and Bragg to play more minutes to develop, but their veterans aren't playing very well, so the game was close. So they didn't really want to put the young guys in, but the part of the reason the game was close is that their veterans weren't playing very well.
Right.
So it's sort of an interesting dilemma thing that Bill Self is going to have to sort through.
What's your guess on how it'll shake out minutes wise and with the front court? What Perry Ellis is going to get his 28 or whatever. Who's 2, 3, and 4 in terms of minutes played? Does Diallo become a starter at some point? Yeah, I think Diallo, if you're projecting way ahead into maybe even conference play January, even maybe early February, you would ideally, if he's develops like he should, I think he's their best option in terms of somebody to pair with Ellis. Where it gets sort of complicated with me is I thought Carlton Bragg was going to get squeezed a little bit just because of Bill Self's, tendency to lean towards veteran guys, and Bragg brings a lot of the stuff that Ellis does. But Bragg has been pretty good, and Bill Self has said that he's kind of been, their best freshman, and I think he's more ready to play right now than Diallo is. He brings different things. So I think both those guys by February are going to be in the rotation, and that sort of is where it gets complicated because you've got Jamari Traylor, who Bill Self loves to play because of the energy and the toughness and all the things that he really likes, but then he's another undersized 4, so then you're playing Bragg and Ellis and Traylor. That's where it gets complicated. I've always thought that you would probably have kind of Lucas as the backup center, and then you would have either Traylor as Bragg as kind of the backup power forward. And maybe it'll still be that way, but it does seem a little kind of crowded in there when maybe either Traylor or Bragg is not going to play as many minutes. We know one thing that'll happen in the next game, which is Wednesday night against Holy Cross, is that a Holy Cross player will not dunk on Kansas. We know that because Bill Self was adamant about the Harvard player who dunked, and I think he made a point after the game that among the Kansas front court, they have 30 fouls.
Yeah.
They have 30 fouls to give, and somebody better use one on a big guy going to the basket. And I actually, it was a good line. I thought kind of a little bit of a ha-ha myself. I think that's a really good point. I mean, if you're Hunter Mickelson or Landon Lucas, Jamari Traylor even, you know what? They need that physical presence on the floor in the front court. Perry Ellis isn't that kind of guy.
Yeah.
And Shek Diallo will be that kind of guy, I think, but he's raw and he's still in a kind of a formative stage. And Bragg seems to be, at least in the first, 7, 8 games, better away from the basket than at the basket. He's got a great jumper. So I kind of see Mickelson and Traylor and Lucas as being almost enforcer-type guys. Be tough at the basket. And I kind of think that's what the challenge in practice after Harvard was for KU.
Yeah, it was a good line. I think it was directed mostly towards Perry Ellis. Because, if you look at it's sort of interesting because I was thinking about how Perry kind of is constantly, very much like Wayne Selden, is sort of scrutinized, even though when he plays pretty well. I think he had 15 against Loyola and he had 12 the other day, and it's sort of like he's in this mini slump.
Yeah, why isn't it more?
Yeah, but I think more to Bill Self's point was that I don't think he's liked sort of the energy that Perry has played with and maybe some of the toughness elements, and I think that was kind of pointed towards him, letting that guy dunk on him. But it is true. I think you have Lucas and Mickelson, guys you can throw in there and add some of that too. And when you have all these guys, it is odd that they're not rebounding the ball better.
All right, so we've got the 2 games this week for Kansas. They play Wednesday, as I said, against Holy Cross, which, by the way, a little piece of trivia for you. They name the schools on Kansas non-conference schedule that have won national championships. We know Kentucky. We know UCLA. And Michigan,
I guess UNLV didn't play them, ended up playing them, but
right, Michigan State,
yeah,
right? Holy Cross, the 1947 NCAA champion with a freshman guard named Bob Cousy, coming into Allen Fieldhouse this week, and has played Harvard already. And I can't remember if they won, but it was a 1-point game. It was like a low-scoring 1-point game. So
Holy Cross beat Harvard.
Beat them by 1, and so I think that should get attention in Kansas practice this week. That the team coming into to Allen Fieldhouse gave Harvard fits, and just as Harvard gave KU fits, coached by Bill Carmody, who was the Northwestern coach for quite a long time.
Also coached Chris Young, newly signed Royals pitcher.
How about that?
Yeah,
that's exactly his exactly. So so this will be the second straight opponent that comes in, a well-coached team. And maybe if the players aren't, if the players are a little bit intimidated by the surroundings, it's going to be a well-coached team that'll have a good game plan against Kansas. I suspect Holy Cross will try to slow it down and gum it up a little bit. And I think if they're smart, that's what they would try to do. And I think that's what all non-conference opponents that expect to be overwhelmed at Allen Fieldhouse should do.
Yeah, exactly. I think it'll be sort of a similar, well, maybe the result won't be similar, but the strategy will be similar to Harvard. They have a template of probably a similar team with similar personnel to what they did. Harvard did have some bigger guys. I don't know if Holy Cross, I still need to look at some of their guys, see if they have any true center types that they can throw at Kansas. But Harvard did have one kind of 6'9", 6'10" guy who actually was like a former top 75 recruit who was a pretty nice player, but we'll see if Holy Cross has anybody like that.
I know on Twitter, in the Twitter sphere, if I can get that right, on Saturday during the game, a lot of people were liking the Harvard push in the second half and saying it felt like a second-round NCAA tournament game. I don't know about that. Chances are Kansas ain't playing a second-round NCAA tournament game in Allen Fieldhouse, and they're probably playing an 8-9. I don't see Harvard as an 8-9 or a 7-10. But the intensity of the game and an opponent actually having a good plan of attack against Kansas, I thought it's the type of thing that can serve Kansas well down the stretch. And again, a well-coached team on Saturday. Oregon State comes to Kansas City. It's a Sprint Center game, and Oregon State's off to a good start. I think I looked; they were 7-1 going into the week, and just look at the schedule. It seems like the season just started for Kansas, but this is the first. Holy Cross is the first of just 5 non-conference games remaining before league play starts in early January. And so, what does Kansas need to get out of the non-conference besides winning them all? Since they're all, correct me if I'm wrong, they're all either in Kansas City or in Lawrence.
And then they go to
San Diego State. They're at San Diego. Yeah, that's right. So what, besides winning them all for Kansas, what do you think the development of the front court? They're going to get Brandon Green back at some point. What needs to happen over the next 2 or 3 weeks for KU?
Yeah, I mean, I just think solidifying their rotation and giving Diallo maybe some time to get some minutes, whether that's in blowouts or just as part of the rotation. I mean, he's played 2 games, and Bill Self said this a bunch during the kind of the first month about talking about how raw he was, but just how he missed those exhibition games even, and he just didn't really have a chance to sort of play through his mistakes, as the line Bill Self kept using. So I don't know if the game against Harvard, if it would have been a 20-point game if he plays Diallo more, I would tend to think yes, but who knows. But I just think getting him more time to get acclimated will be big, and sorting through that front court puzzle, and obviously introducing Green back to the rotation in some facet will be interesting. Svi hasn't been shooting very well lately, so it would be interesting to see if Green could push him a little bit in the guard rotation. But
seemed to go to the basket well against Harvard. Svi did.
Yeah, and he offers. I don't know that he's been guarding great either. I don't know if Bill Self's been happy with that either. But I do think overall he offers a little bit more, just an all-around presence than Green does. But more than anything, I guess just staying healthy and getting kind of ready for conference play. I mean, the Big 12 is. He's going to be another meat grinder.
Yeah, and we opened this by talking about the AP poll and the wire service polls. Kansas is second in the AP, but Iowa State's second in the coaches poll, and Oklahoma's in the top 10 in both. West Virginia's moved up; they're in the top 15, I think. So Kansas State has been really impressive so far in this part of the non-conference part of the schedule, with the one loss to North Carolina. That's it. That win at Georgia last week for Kansas State was really impressive. So I think that's a team that you look at as being much better than everybody expected going into the season. You're right. I think it's just Baylor beat Vanderbilt, just coming off the Vanderbilt win this weekend. So another, I think, vintage, solid year for the Big 12 during the regular season. We'll talk in March about how the Big 12 will do in the NCAA tournament, but already some really good non-conference victories, and it's reflective in the polls. So we'll follow the Jayhawks in the Kansas City Star, online at kansascity.com. And thank you, Rustin Dodd, for being here today. And this is Sports Beat KC, the podcast of the Kansas City Star.